Carbon Talk is a video we have made to share what we learned about the carbon neutrality. Clearly, carbon neutrality is a global concern, and here in Europe, its development is a step ahead. I have come to you today to see how carbon neutrality and energy transition are developing here in Europe. So I'm happy to be here to invite the expert and professor and also from the UN. So we want to share the leadership and also the practice to our customer and audience. So, okay, first of all, let me introduce our guest today. The first one is Miss Phoebe Koundouri. She is the president of the European Association of Environmental and Resource Economists.
Yeah, very briefly, I'm a professor in sustainable development, leading a cluster of institutions on the implementation of the SDGs and the European Green Deal. I also lead the European quarters of the United Nations Sustainable Development Solutions Network.
And also, I want to introduce Mr. Jose Donoso.
Thank you very much to invite me to be present today. I am the president of the Global Solar Council. I am a member of the steering committee of EAERE, and I'm a member of the strategy group for PV of the International Energy Agency. In all my jobs, I am very interested to boost the PV in the world as a key solution against the climate emergency and energy sovereignty for the countries.
And also I want to introduce Mr. Massamba Thioye. Yeah?
Very pleased to be with you here. I'm leading the regulatory framework implementation within the UNFCCC Secretariat, the UN Climate Change Secretariat, and I'm also the executive of the UN Climate Change Global Innovation Hub.
And the final one is my colleague, Mr. Michel Fraisse. He is also our vice president and CTO from the Huawei Digital Power Europe.
I'm happy to be there to tell you a bit more what we are doing later.
Okay, so let's start our next topic. So the UN Climate Exchange Conference predicted last December. They say if the power consumption continues, so the temperature will rise 2.7 by the end of this century. So if we continue our energy consumption like here now. So what does Europe think about this issue?
Our target that has been identified in IPCC report, the Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, is 1.5 maximum increase in global average temperature. Because beyond this, we are facing catastrophic risks that mean deaths and mean loss of important infrastructure. So we definitely need to act upon this, and we need to act now. So we have the European Green Deal. So the European Green Deal basically has 4 axes: climate neutrality, reduction of pollution, clean tech leadership for European companies, and leaving no one behind. And it comes with 1 trillion budget. After the European Green Deal that has been launched by the end of 2019, we've been transposing the European Green Deal, the 9 different policies within the deal, into legislation and regulations.
So the European already takes the action.
Europe in this moment perceive the Green Deal, perceive the ecological transition not only as an environmental need, that it is, but too as economical opportunity. Europe needs to build up our energy sovereignty, and we will achieve to this energy sovereignty only with renewable energies and with the substitution of fossil fuels that create climate change, but at the same time did that Europe become dependent of other areas of the world. And second one, because it's a real opportunity to reduce electricity cost, particularly. I would like to remark the aspect that now in these recovery plans, many countries decide to support PV particularly, or wind, but particularly PV, not only for climate. For instance, in Spain, the government decided to give grants for more than 900 million euros for self-consumption. It's the capillarity of the self-consumption is a very good opportunity for economy. In Italy, the Italian government decided to give grants for 110% of subvention for self-consumption projects. France just finished to announce that they wanted to achieve 90 gigawatts of PV in the future. Thus, we are not only environmental topic, we are a driver of the economy. And we are a big opportunity for Europe and a big opportunity for all the countries that have a clear idea that the right bet is renewable energies and particularly PV.
So I just would like to take a more, let's say, high level and global perspective on that specific issue. I think what the challenge that we are facing with the climate crisis is at two levels. The first is the lack of ambition. We do not have enough ambition. What is needed is what science dictates, the 1.5 degree goal. But nobody is setting target based on that. They will look at technologies that are currently available to them. They will look at policies that they have already identified that they can implement. They will look at the financial instruments that are available to them. The second thing is, even where we have ambition, the solutions are not as effective as they should have been, because the way we understand climate action is quite limitative. So when you talk about climate action, people will think primarily at actions that would be undertaken at the sectoral level. And the mindset is mainly how do we reduce the carbon footprint of existing products and services. This is good, but this is not enough. Instead of focusing on how do we reduce the carbon footprint of existing products and services, we need to go back to the core human need and ask ourselves, how do we use innovation to reinvent the value chain and the supply chain that will allow to satisfy this core human need while being aligned with the 1.5 degree goal. This is more disruptive, this is more transformative, but this is what is needed.
And we have to focus quite hardly on the hard-to-abate sectors, that is transport, shipping, aviation, railways, airways, on the, of course, energy, power production, and the optimal mixture of renewables. We have to focus on land use, which is a big issue.
Now the remark, land use is key, because at the end of the day we need land. Our technology, PV, honestly, I believe is the technology with less environmental impact of all renewables technologies, not in comparison with others. But we have a real impact, is the use of the land. We need land, because particularly in Western countries, now it's growing the NIMBY effect, not in my backyard. Because they say, oh, renewables, yes, but not here, not in this way. And then the first thing that we need to do first to supply to the public opinion that we have no negative impacts. But our main responsibility is to do the things really in the right way. For 30 years in this area, the human life will be very reduced, will be a refuge for birds, for animals, for all kinds. And every year we did studies and we check what happened in some plants with the biodiversity in the environment and inside the plant. And we have discovered that the biodiversity is much better inside. Then we need to give these opportunities to the other municipalities. Only if we really co-design with the local population, the environmental authorities, the plants, we did the things in the right way.
So I think this idea we will share to our customer and also some government officer. So share your opinion to them. Now I want to ask you, in China, before we focus on to build the big solar farm. Now, if you have the villa, you install the solar on the rooftop of your house. So I know Europe is a pioneer about the distributed solar solution. Can you share some experience about the policy or some practice to encourage the company and also the householder to install the solar solution on rooftop?
We need solar farms and we need in the rooftops. We need both. But for me, the most amazing, the most interesting is all this transformation that we can do. Self-consumption, the management of this surplus consumption onto the grid, the smart grid, with the digitalization, with the transformation in the ICT world, in the transport world, in the integration of the demand, we can create really this concept of the smart cities, smart islands, really a different way to produce and consume electricity, really a way where we'll be really the citizens, the center of the energy world.
I think the residential application, the rooftop applications, where first of all, it's quite simple. It's very simple, safe as well, and scalable. You can put 1 PV panel, 2 PV panel, 3 PV panel, 100 PV panels, depending on the rooftop that you got, with the same technology. The smart string inverters that Huawei is providing. If I take an example, this is like you have a garden, you got your own vegetables. Here you got your own power supplies, your own power plant, and you know what's going on. The next step is, like in a garden, you got too much beans, you can put them in a fridge. Here, if you want, you can also have some energy storage locally.
Can I add one maybe additional dimension? So definitely having distributed production of solar energy is extremely powerful. Individual citizen can be empowered to be prosumer. They will be producer as well as consumer.
For me, the most amazing, the most interesting thing of our technology and all the other disruptions in the system. We are a disruptive technology. Flexible, cheap, easy, environmental friendly. We are the clear.
I met many customers. That's a big giant operator in those countries. They want set up their ambitious target to reach the carbon neutrality. But meanwhile, they also meet the big challenge. For example, they want to invest a lot of money to modernize their network to reach the carbon neutrality. And also, at this time, the operator financial is not as good as before. They talk to us whether we can share some experience, just Phoebe said, whether the government can do more policy, for example, the financial support or tax reduction to support them, to help them to reach the carbon neutrality easier for them.
I would like to say, in this moment in the financial market, international financial markets, there is a lot of liquidity. And there are many investment funds looking for opportunities to invest. We need to substitute the old conventional technologies. But we need to substitute these old conventional technologies, giving the customers the same quality of the electricity, the same quality of the energy, and the same previsibility that the past.
So what's your opinion about how to use the innovation and the technology to address this issue, to solve this problem?
For me, technology, let's say innovation in general, has an important role to play. We need to complement the technology pull policies that are currently implemented with technology push policy. But for that to be done, you need to create a framework that allow to measure the net climate contribution of solution, of an enabler. So companies that are working in the ICT sector, for example, if they develop solution, how do we measure the impact of their solution? It's not about their emission, but it's about what you call handprint, what is the impact that they are making on others. We do not have currently this framework, and actually the European Commission is strongly supporting one initiative, the European Green Digital Coalition, and one of the focus is to develop standards that will allow to measure the impact of an enabling entity, the net impact. But if you want to measure the net impact, you need two things. One is the carbon footprint, and then the other one is the carbon handprint. And for both cases, you cannot, at least it be challenging to put a framework to measure them without digital technology. So the digital technology could be here a good, let's say, facilitator. Now, when it comes to having transformative and effective type of climate action, I would like to give a concrete example, the transport sector, and how innovation can help also there. So when we are talking about reducing the carbon emission of the transport sector, the main focus is how do we replace combustion car with EV car. This is important, but this is not enough. We need to ask the question, why car at the first place? Before talking about combustion versus EV, is it possible to implement actions that will reduce the need for car? And then you can then look at how do you redesign your cities so that product and services are at walking and biking distance, and then you connect your cities with very efficient public transportation. But you can even go one step further and ask the question, why do we need mobility? And to what extent we could replace a trip to work with telecommuting. We can also think about online shopping that replace trip to shop. So for example, the need of access can be satisfied without mobility. This is really the main point I wanted to make. But we can say, maybe we can satisfy access differently using innovation and the digital technology. This is this type of mindset that needs to be promoted.
I think the Jay-Z as well agree. They say that the positive impact of ICT is 10 times more than their own carbon emissions. And this is true because we saw it during the COVID situations. I live in a nice city in Grenoble in France, but it's like a pot. So if there is no wind, potentially there can be a lot of pollution staying in the city. And during the COVID, we have no car for 3 months. You could see the difference. That was amazing, seriously. So in 3 months, you can recover a lot of things. You could see birds coming into the cities.
Yes, and not only, ICT technologies improves access, because it gives the option of participation to people that might never had that option. And I will give you an example, very self-focused, but never before did I give a speech with 12,000 people listening. I needed a stadium, who am I? But through the COVID period, it was amazing that it happened. And you get people from developing countries, disabled people, new parents.
I also want to share the discussion about the telecom network. The digital technology have improved the efficiency for the whole society. But meanwhile, they use about 2% of total electricity, 2% from a worldwide perspective. And if we add the data center power consumption together, it's about 3 to 5% of the total capacity. So they also need to concede to reduce the CO2 emission.
We also have the ability to green these data centers. And finally, I will say with the data centers, heat recovery. what do we do with the heat of the data centers? And you can use it for farming. Fish farming can be greenhouse farming, or it can be to heat some buildings. And then maybe the data center can be positive.
Finally, I would like to invite you to give the suggestion to us.
And particularly, I would like to finish with something that says before, directed to the people that will work in remote energies. We are the good guys, but we need to do everything in the good way.
And we should be clear that the technology is here. We have the money. We need to pave our pathways, the systemic, holistic, optimal mixture of technological, social innovation, financial solutions, and policy solutions in order to accelerate the transition.
So let's focus on the high-tech industry a bit. For all the telecom operators or TowerCos, we can help them to green their networks, to reduce their power consumptions. And why they're going to be better to the planet, they're also going to save some money.
From my side, we need radical collaboration. Collaboration among nations and collaboration within nations between private and public sector, and also multi-level climate action. It's not about just fixing issue within the boundary of my jurisdiction or within the boundary of my company, but this is more about thinking about solutions that others can also use.
I also want to say the carbon neutrality has become the common concern in the world. So both of us, government and also company, should consider the long-term strategy and short-term plan. But most important is take action. Just do it. So this is very important. Technologies play a very important role to reach the carbon neutrality. So from this perspective, so Huawei, we would like to keep strong investment on technology to support to reach the carbon neutrality. I think we need the platform to exchange idea. You guys in the Europe have the leadership idea and concept and also the best practice. Some other country want to know what's the best practice in this place. Finally, I also agree, Massamba says this is an ecosystem. Need every people, every country to cooperate together to reach the carbon neutrality.
SDG 17 is creating partnerships for the goal. And it's the most important of all the SDGs.
Okay, thank you. Let's work together to protect our Earth for the future generations.